So I'm still trying to find a better angle for videoing myself while I'm foiling. This particular session I'm using an old homemade GoPro mount. It's essentially a metal bracket that I've screwed into the rear footstrap inserts, and from there's a pole, metal pole about 3 or 4 foot long, and then on the end of that is the GoPro 360. Now, although I like the results and it's got some good footage going on here, it's not the easiest to use because, as you can see here, I'm wobbling around like crazy, especially in the early stages before I get used to it, because it does add quite a lot of swing weight. So when I'm carving around, especially changing direction, it swings out and around and basically makes it very difficult for me to change direction. It also adds a little bit of weight, and combined with the additional weight from FoilDrive, you do notice it, and it does become harder to pump, harder to stay high on the mast, harder to carve. You just got to put up with it, get used to it to a certain extent. So now I know that it works, I'm going to try and make a lighter version, so an aluminium metal bracket and a carbon pole. That should cut down the weight considerably. So my aims in these sessions, other than obviously having fun, is to try to improve my fitness and to try to improve my foiling technique. And by technique I mean pumping, riding waves, downwinding. There's just so much that you can do on a day like this. The swell today was really rubbish. It was a foot at best. There were lines rolling in, but really inconsistent. Sometimes they fade out, sometimes they turn into quite nice bumps, and you can get some good carves and some good glides on them. But it's not quite waves and it's not quite downwinding, but you can still practice a little bit of everything on it. Here I'm carving around, ollieing up there to start foiling properly without FoilDrive. Here I'm chasing a bit of swell that I think just basically faded away into nothing. What I've tried to do is, whenever I have engaged the motor of FoilDrive, I put the yellow text in the top left-hand corner of the screen, so that will indicate when FoilDrive is on and I'm getting thrust from FoilDrive. And obviously, when that text isn't there, then I'm not. I'm just foiling without the use of FoilDrive. So obviously, I use FoilDrive to get me on foil in the first place. And on a day like today, with as swell as it is, there's absolutely no way that I could get onto foil without FoilDrive. There's just no way that I could paddle up onto foil in these conditions. And even if I could, every time you fall off, there's more paddling to get into the position, more paddling to get onto foil, and my fitness just doesn't allow me to do that very often. So again, with FoilDrive, I can be literally on the water for an hour non-stop. Okay, so I might fall off 5 or 6 times and have to restart again, but I do that pretty much immediately. I don't sit there and have a rest. So for somebody like me, my fitness isn't as good as the guys out there who can literally ride on foil for an hour non-stop, or more in some people's cases. But with FoilDrive I am suddenly able to do half-hour-long rides, hour-long rides. And it just really has opened up such a lot of potential for me, not just in learning. Wow, it's just helped me improve every aspect of my foiling so much quicker than I could have done without. But also just allowing me to utilize days like this where I wouldn't be able to do anything without FoilDrive. Not just starting and getting on foil, but if you pull the trigger just as you're about to come off foil, so if you mess up pumping or you mess up a turn and you pull the trigger, then you get that instant thrust on demand, and 9 times out of 10 you can just carry on, either e-foiling back out the whole way, or just for long enough so that you can then ollie up onto foil and pump or turn onto a bit of swell as it arrives, and carry on foiling properly without FoilDrive. So it's just such an amazing training tool as well as session saver. It really is. So the equipment that I'm using today, the Axis Pump 37, which is 4'6", 20.5 inches wide, For me, it's the perfect compromise of size, so that it's still small enough to be super easy to pump and very maneuverable, but it still has enough volume so that I can get on foil without draining the battery too quickly. The foils that I use mostly for this sort of thing is the PNG 1010. Today I'm using the Art 1099. The 1010 is super easy to pump. It's slower, still quite maneuverable though, especially with the red advance fuselage, like the crazy short advance. That's such an awesome, fun fuse. The 1099 is a little bit more challenging. I chose it today because I wanted to push my pumping fitness and technique. Really need a little bit more precise technique when you're pumping the high aspect foils like the Arts. You make a mistake, you pay for it, which is why FoilDrive is so good, because you make a mistake and you can just pull the trigger, get a bit of thrust, and you can carry on without falling in. So yeah, there's so many reasons why FoilDrive is the perfect, not only the perfect learning tool, but just turns absolute rubbish days into such fun sessions. So I think I've yacked on enough. This video is literally 6.5 minutes of raw, unedited footage, so I hope it's been useful for you. Cheers, till next time.